Welcome to this course in Graceful Presence. I'm Jeff Nielsen. Today we'll be talking about caring for the body and feelings. And to kind of set this up, I should say that philosophy for a long time neglected the body. The body was thought to be an obstacle to a good life. The body was full of evil desires and appetites that had to be suppressed, rejected, or starved. The body was a prison, the prison house of the soul that had to be, escaped at death. The mind or reason or the soul had to separate from the limitations of the body to be truly free. Now, obviously, that view of the body leads to all sorts of hang-ups about our bodies. And Montaigne, who we looked at last time, realized this. And for Montaigne, he saw that the body was the chief cause of our insecurities. And he realized that many people don't know how to live well with the body. We're uncomfortable in our own skin. We don't feel at home in our bodies. We feel alienated. In a way, it was only with Nietzsche in the 19th century that the importance and significance of the body was recognized in philosophy. And Nietzsche, of course, had read Montaigne. And with Nietzsche, in a sense, caring for the body became as important as caring for the mind or the soul. In fact, the health of the body is essential for healthiness of mind. And even perhaps better said, it wasn't two separate things, the body and mind, but it was they were all part of the same whole. Now, graceful presence is a philosophy of embodiment, right? Graceful presence recognizes that the quality of our actions and desires and thoughts and emotions are dependent on the quality of care that we give our body, because all of those things are rooted in our body. Our emotions, our thoughts and desires and actions all arise from our embodiment. So graceful presence, of course, does not refer to one's physical appearance, the physical appearance of the body, how you look, but graceful presence is about how you inhabit, how you dwell in your body, how you carry your body with calm self-confidence, emotional resilience, right, cheerfulness, and a loving and infectious enthusiasm for life. So we're going to elevate the body and caring for the body to the first spot when it comes to living with a graceful presence. So the first practice is caring for the body, because living well with your body is both essential to living a good life, but also a key practice to living with graceful presence. Now, caring for your body requires being, more intentional about your diet or nutrition, about exercise and sleep. Caring for your body requires, graceful presence requires that you're more intentional about your posture and your movement as well. Your posture, somebody once said, is the physical manifestation of your point of view of life. I think that's kind of a cool quote. I'll repeat that your posture, right, how you carry yourself, how you sit, stand, and move, is the physical manifestation of your point of view on life. It's your attitude towards self and others is reflected in how you carry your body. Think about that for a moment, right? What does your posture and movement, how you sit, stand, and move, how does that reflect how you feel about yourself and your life? Right? We know that changing your posture can change your attitude, and that can be for, good or bad. In any case, this notion of caring for the body rests on two kind of key insights. One I've already mentioned, right? That is that all of our emotions and thoughts, desires, and actions are rooted in the body. And again, the quality of our emotions, thoughts, and desires and actions depend on the quality of care we give our body. So the quality of our feelings, thoughts, and desires and actions will be a function of our physical presence to life. And the second insight is that our body, and I mentioned this in the last lecture, but our body is designed for movement, for motion, to move. And the brain evolved to support that movement. So caring for the body, and this is a key idea, right? Caring for the body is then fostering those habits and practices that facilitate healthy movement or motion, right? So, think about that for a moment, right? Ask yourself, right? Whenever you're choosing to do something, or to, how you're going to live your life, is what you're doing going to hinder movement? Is it going to benefit movement, right? So the key practice in caring for the self, again, is a good rule of thumb is to always ask, that you should always do whatever will benefit and improve movement, and you should always avoid whatever will impede or harm movement. So, when you're thinking about what you should eat, what work you should do, how you should spend your time, your day, again, a good rule of thumb is to always ask yourself, will this, benefit the movement of my body? Will this somehow hinder and harm the movement of my body? So, but that kind of is the rule of thumb, right? What we want to do is live our lives in such a way that we enhance our mobility and avoid those things that might hinder our mobility. So here are just a couple of easy things to do. And I'm not trying to create this whole wellness program for you. That's something that you need to do for yourself. But there are some simple things that we can do in caring for our body that will help us, right, have this healthiness of movement and mobility. So we have to remember again that embodiment means that our feelings, thoughts, desires, and actions are rooted in our body. So the quality of our feelings, thoughts, desires, and actions is dependent on the quality of care we give our body. So here are some areas that I think can help us as we try to improve how we care for our body. And they're pretty straightforward. The first one is sleep. Sleep deprivation today is a huge problem, and I'm sure that you feel and are sleep deprived. They say that you need at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. I'm sure that most of you are not getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. But it's not just that quantity, but you also need the quality of sleep. So when it comes to sleep, here are some thoughts, right? One is you might want to move your bedtime back half an hour this week, just to see the difference it might make. And here are some tips for better quality sleep. Go to bed at the same time, right? You should set a regular time for sleep. Stop using electric devices 1 hour before bedtime. Now, I know that many of you probably, lie in bed with your phone, looking at your screen as you try to drift off to sleep. And the first thing you do in the morning is you probably pick up the phone and again look at the screen. Well, that's a very bad habit when it comes to not only caring for the body, but for sleep. So try it this week. Stop using any electronic devices 1 hour before bedtime. Another one is don't eat within 2 hours of going to bed, right? And no caffeine after midday. And if possible, sleep in a dark and cold room. So those are just a few thoughts about sleep. Another one that you might not have thought about is hydration, right? It's important to drink enough water. Water affects our energy level. What is it that they say? Our body is like 60% water and our brain is 75% water. I haven't checked those numbers out myself, but our bodies are substantially composed of water. So obviously, without proper hydration, it'll negatively affect the operation of our body and our mobility. So here's something that you can try, right? Again, I'm not going to try to, prescribe for you exactly what you need to do, but just try adding 1 extra glass of water a day to what you normally drink. A third thing to think about in terms of diet or nutrition, right? Cut down on sugar. Eat more fruits and veggies. Cut out 1 visit to fast food this week. So many people eat, several times a week, even perhaps a couple times a day at fast food places. So eliminate fast food as much as possible. And if you're an addict to fast food, then just try cutting out 1 visit to fast food this week. And eliminate one thing from your diet that you know is unhealthy. So consider what you eat on a regular basis. And I'm sure you can identify at least one thing that you know is not good for you. And just cut that out of your diet this week. Another thing is exercise. And again, I'm not going to tell you need to go to the gym or exactly what you should do here. You can figure that out for yourself. But just in general terms, what you can start doing now is to move more, right? Take the stairs, not the elevator. Park farther away. And one of the great things to do, and it's also one of our character exercises, is take morning and evening walks. The other thing I wanted to point out is breathing. This is going to be important in the second practice of graceful presence here as well. But this is kind of stress management. So at least 3 times a day, whenever you're feeling stressed, breathe slowly in and out 5 times. And then finally, I want to say something about posture, right? Be aware, be intentional about how you sit, stand, and move throughout your day. Again, here's a suggestion you might try to do. Try doing this a couple of times a day, right? You may even try doing it right now as I explain this, but sit up straight or stand up straight and lift your spine, your waist, and your upper body out of your pelvis. Just elongate your upper body along the spine. And as you're doing so, draw your navel toward your spine. This is a helpful way of doing that, right? Elongating your body along the spine and gently drawing your navel towards your spine. So this is what you can do, right? Imagine a thread lifting you from the top of your head, right? Lifting you up straight so that you're not rigid, but you're comfortably straight. Also, center your weight right over your feet, not back on your heels. And pull your shoulders back, not rigidly, but comfortably. Pull your shoulders back and let your chest sort of stick out. And then lift your chin and eyes. Don't let them seek towards the ground. Again, just try this a couple times a day. Just try to stand so that you're, again, elevating, elongating your upper body along the spine. Imagine that thread that's pulling you from the center of your head, pulling you straight up so that your shoulders are back but relaxed, right? Your chest is out, your chin is up, your eyes forward. Or if that's perhaps too challenging, just carry yourself as you imagine a person of calm self-confidence, emotional resilience, cheerfulness, and with a loving and infectious enthusiasm for life. How would they carry themselves? And then carry yourself that way. Here are a few other tips, right? Number one, slow down and plan your day. It's hard to be gracefully present, right, if you're feeling rushed. Two, make room for others as you occupy space, right? Don't be a space hog, but make room for others. Be an avid observer of grace in others and compliment it when you see it. And I'm not just talking about physical grace, but social and emotional grace. So recognize and compliment kindness and generosity and those sorts of social graces. 4, get rid of uncomfortable clothing and shoes, as well as cumbersome and heavy backpacks. And 5, and I've already kind of mentioned this, but before entering a room or engaging in any activity, remind yourself to be gracefully present. So those are some tips and thoughts that you can apply almost immediately to begin to be more intentional, again, about sleep and diet and exercise and about posture and movement. Now, we've talked before about body image. We've talked about the fact that sometimes we feel great insecurities about our physical appearance. So I want to share with you a couple of more ideas, sort of 10 steps to a positive body image. And this is from the National Eating Disorders website. You can see the link down below. But number 1 is appreciate all that your body can do. I mean, every day your body carries you closer to your dreams. So celebrate all the amazing things your body does for you. Running, dancing, breathing, laughing, dreaming. I mean, your body is an amazing and wonderful gift. The universe itself becomes alive in and through your body. Number 2, keep a top 10 list of things you like about yourself. Things that aren't related to how much you weigh or what you look like. And then read your list often. Add to it as you become aware of more things to like about yourself, right? Appreciate your intrinsic value. Appreciate your character, right? And the way you inhabit your body with grace. 3, remind yourself that true beauty is not simply skin deep, or is beyond that, right? When you feel good about yourself and who you are, you carry yourself with a sense of self-confidence and self-acceptance and openness that makes you beautiful. Beauty, in many ways, is a state of mind, not a state of your body. And again, graceful presence, or living with graceful presence, produces, in some sense, that deep intrinsic beauty. Again, look at yourself as a whole person. When you see yourself in a mirror or in your mind, choose not to focus on a specific body part. See yourself as you want others to see you, as a whole person. Don't reduce yourself or don't reduce others to a body part, whether it be hair, legs, breasts, or chin. Another idea is surround yourself with positive people. It's easier to feel good about yourself and your body when you are around others who are supportive and who recognize the importance of liking yourself just as you naturally are. Shut down those voices in your head that tell you that your body's not right, that you're a bad person. You can overpower those negative thoughts with positive ones. We'll be talking a lot about this when we look at Marcus Aurelius and how we might be able to, or how we can direct our thoughts by controlling our inner voice. Wear clothes that are comfortable, that make you feel good about your body. Work with your body, not against it, right? Become a critical viewer of social media messages. Pay attention to images, slogans, or attitudes that make you feel bad about yourself or your body, and protest those messages. Write a letter to the advertiser or talk back to the image or message itself. And don't post messages yourself that might elevate the surface beauty of the body, the surface appearance of the body beyond what it deserves. Do something nice for yourself, something that lets your body know you appreciate it. We have some exercises, I think, that help along those lines. And then finally, use the time and energy that you might have spent worrying about food, calories, and your weight to do something to help others. Sometimes reaching out to other people can help you feel better about yourself and can make a positive change in our world. I think that the quickest way to get out of a negative mood is to show compassion for another person, to forget yourself and serve others. So just to kind of wrap up this first practice of graceful presence, right? A key takeaway, again, how we're feeling, confident or insecure, will affect how we inhabit our body, how we carry our body, our physical presence to life. When you're feeling confident, you're open, you're straight, you're relaxed, you're willing to be seen by others. When you're feeling insecure, you tend to close yourself down, you hunch over, you're tense, you want to be invisible, right? The point is that how we carry our body can affect how we're feeling. So change your posture, and it will affect your emotional and mental states. So if you're feeling insecure, anxious, or fearful, change your posture, right? Change the way you're moving, right? And do some of these exercises that we've talked about. Here are a couple of other things to think about, right? Some exercises that might help you improve the way you care for your body. Number one, identify 3 things you're doing right now that you believe are properly caring for your body. And of course, continue to do those. Identify, what are 3 things you're doing right now that you believe are harmful for your own body, and then stop doing those things. And then finally, what is one beneficial thing you can begin doing to replace one of those harmful things? So again, I would challenge you in this first practice of graceful presence to again become more intentional about how you care for your body, about your diet, your sleep, your exercise, and be more intentional about how you carry yourself, about your posture and your movement. So that's practice number 1 of cultivating graceful presence, caring for your body. Now that's a lot. And before I talk about the second practice, maybe you should take a quick intermission, pause the video, and take a quick break. And I'll see you back in just a couple of minutes. So the second practice in graceful presence is don't react to your feelings in the moment. No second darts. Let me try to share with you an experience that maybe you can relate to that will illustrate this. Not long ago, I woke up one morning feeling anxious, and I reacted to that feeling. I asked myself, what's wrong? There's something I'm nervous about. What is it? So in that moment of waking, when I felt that anxiousness, I reacted to it. And I said, oh yeah, I have so much to do. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And then I began to experience discouragement. And I reacted to that feeling of discouragement. And I asked myself, why do I have to do so much? Why can't my life be easier? And I said that, I began to feel self-pity. And I reacted to that self-pity. And then I thought, my wife doesn't help me enough. My children are of no use either. So now I began to feel anger. And I reacted to that anger. And I thought to myself, wow, my life sucks. It couldn't be worse. And I began to feel depressed and miserable. Now, all of that took about 10 seconds, from waking up feeling anxious, right, to feeling depressed and miserable. It's an amazing thing, and I'm sure you can perhaps relate to that. And I realized since then that unpleasant things can happen to us, right? Negative experiences can happen to us. Negative moods can appear in our conscious awareness out of nowhere. But what I've realized is it's not those negative experiences or those negative moods that make me miserable, but it's how I react to them. Think about that for a moment. I mean, where do you learn how to be a human being? I mean, where do you learn to be gracefully present, not precept, but present to life? At the university, right, you take classes to learn how to solve mathematical equations. You take classes to write programs. You take classes to design bridges or how to write papers, right, how to copy edit so you don't have preset when it should be present. Right, all of these classes. Maybe you have a class where you learn about human beings and anthropology. But in all of those things, right, you still, at first and foremost, are a human being. And you first and foremost need to learn how to be skilled, the skillful practice of being human. But where do you learn that? How to be gracefully present to everything that you do? Where do you learn to be gracefully present to yourself while you're solving equations or writing papers or designing stuff, right? Learning how to live well with yourself, right, in your own skin, in your own body, with your own emotions, thoughts, and feelings, is an incredibly important skill, and yet it's not taught at the university. Well, it is taught in this class because, as we've said many times now, most of us don't know how to live well with our moods and feelings. We tend to react to them. We let our moods and feelings determine our attitude rather than choosing our attitude regardless of what we're feeling, right? We don't, again, know how to inhabit our bodies. We don't know how to dwell in our bodies. We're not comfortable. So again, we let what we're feeling determine our attitude when we should learn how to choose our attitude, whatever we are feeling. And this is where Buddha makes a great contribution to graceful presence. Buddha will teach us how to choose our attitude, how to be joyfully present to life, regardless of our external circumstances or moods. I mean, he's known for the statement that life is suffering, the first noble truth of Buddhism. Yet any idiot knows that life is suffering. Right? It takes a genius to realize how to be happy in that kind of a life. And Buddha figured that out. Buddha figures out how to live a life that is blissful, beautiful, joyful, tranquil, in spite of or even in the midst of suffering. So the second practice of graceful presence is learning how to cultivate graceful presence, is learning how to live with your feelings, learning how to live with your emotions and moods, whatever they are. Learning not to be fearful when you feel fear. It's learning not to be angry when you feel anger, not to be unhappy when you feel sadness. It's learning how to be joyfully present to life regardless of what you're feeling. Simply put, it's learning not to react to your feelings in the moment that you're feeling them. Right? Buddha will teach us that you can choose in each moment. You can choose whether you want to be guardedly self-conscious or you can choose whether you want to be gracefully present. It's up to you. So let's kind of take a look at his teachings here. And the teaching is found in the Dart Discourse. Of course, Buddha's real name was Siddhartha Gautama. Buddha just means the awakened one or the enlightened one. As we kind of look at the Dart Discourse, it might be the case that this one reading, this one discourse, will stay with you more than any other thing that we talk about in class. I know it's had a remarkable influence on prior students and on my own life. Again, he's going to show us or tell us that life throws a dart at all of us. But the problem is, more often than not, we pull out that dart and stick it right back in. The Dart Discourse is going to teach us, again, not to ignore, suppress, or reject what we're feeling, but not to react to it either. So let's kind of jump in and see how this goes. Again, in the Dart Discourse, the first part I want to read with you, let's set this up by asking ourselves two questions. Who are the two types of people that Buddha talks about in this Dart Discourse, and what do they have in common? So, he says, an untaught worldling, O monks, experiences pleasant feelings. He experiences painful feelings, and he experiences neutral feelings. A well-taught noble disciple likewise experiences pleasant, painful, and neutral feelings. Now, what is the distinction, the diversity, the difference that exists herein between a well-taught noble disciple and an untaught worldling? So just to go back to those two questions, the two types of people. One, there are untaught worldlings or unenlightened persons. And then there are well-taught noble disciples, someone who is beginning to become enlightened. And what they have in common is they all experience unpleasant things. No one escapes painful, unpleasant experiences. No one escapes painful and unpleasant emotions. It's just a part of life. Buddha achieved enlightenment when he was 40 years old. He lived for another 40 years before he passed away. And during those 40 years of enlightened existence, he still experienced, right, these negative emotions and moods. He still experienced painful feelings, right? He still experienced all of the first darts that life throws at us. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's ask the next question. Now that we know what they have in common, these two types of people, they have the same experiences in common, right? They all experience difficult things. So what distinguishes them? What distinguishes the unenlightened and the enlightened person? Let's read a bit more of the Dharma Discourse. He says, when an untaught worldling is touched by a painful bodily feeling, he worries and grieves, he laments, beats his breast, weeps, and is distraught. He thus experiences two kinds of feelings, a bodily and a mental feeling. It is as if a man were pierced by a dart, and following the first piercing, he is hit by a second dart. So that person will experience feelings caused by two darts. It is similar with an untaught worldling when touched by a painful bodily feeling. He worries and grieves, he laments, beats his breast, weeps, and is distraught. So he experiences two kinds of feelings, a bodily and a mental feeling, right? So what distinguishes them? Let's read the next part. We know that the untaught worldling, the unenlightened person, when they get hit with something negative, they respond or they react to that. I mean, both the unenlightened person and the enlightened person get hit with the first dart. That's the bodily feeling caused by our physical engagement with the world. And all experience these bodily feelings of sadness, anger, anxiety, discouragement, and fear. But the unenlightened person reacts to the first dart, the bodily feeling, and essentially throws a second dart at themselves, the mental feeling or the reaction. So it might be like this. The first dart is they feel anger. Then they react and throw a second dart and make themselves angry. First dart, they feel sad, but then they react to that sadness and throw a second dart and feel unhappy and make themselves unhappy. Another example, the first dart is they might feel fear. They react to that feeling, right? And they make themselves afraid. So that's what the unenlightened person does. They react to that bodily feeling and they make themselves worse off. Now, what about the enlightened person? Let's read this next quote. But in the case of a well-taught noble disciple, O monks, when he is touched by a painful feeling, he will not worry nor grieve and lament. He will not beat his breast and weep, nor will he be distraught. It is one kind of feeling he experiences, a bodily one, but not a mental feeling. It is as if a man were pierced by a dart, but was not hit by a second dart following the first one. So this person experiences feelings caused by a single dart only. It is similar with a well-taught noble disciple. When touched by a painful feeling, he will not worry nor grieve and lament. He will not beat his breast and weep, nor will he be distraught. He experiences one single feeling, a bodily one, right? The untaught worldling gets hit with the first dart and they feel anger, but then they react and make themselves angry. The well-taught noble disciple gets hit with the first dart, they feel anger, but they don't react to it. They don't make themselves angry, right? The unenlightened person feels fear. They throw a second dart and make themselves afraid. Or they feel sad. They throw a second dart and make themselves unhappy. But the well-taught noble disciple doesn't throw second darts, doesn't react to those painful feelings. So exactly what does a noble enlightened disciple do? Well, we might sort of put it like this. Whenever you get hit by a first dart, don't throw a second dart at yourself. Or another way to put this, whenever you begin to feel anxious, fearful, angry, envious, resentful, or discouraged, just calmly accept what you're feeling. Don't get upset about it. Don't get upset about being upset. Instead, breathe into your emotions. Focus on your breathing, not your negative feelings. Breathe in and breathe out, counting your breaths. Let your breathing become the anchor to your mental states in difficult moments. So instead of throwing a second dart, you turn your attention to your breath. If you recall, I mentioned before that a good friend of mine who's Buddhist said that the mind is like a kite, and your breath is the string that controls the kite. So if your mind is becoming filled with these negative thoughts, focus on your breath. Focus on the string that controls the kite, right? That's what a noble disciple does. They don't react. They don't throw second darts, right? They accept what they're feeling. They don't suppress it. But instead of reacting, right, they let it be. They accept it, and they turn their attention to their breath, right? Maybe another way of putting this is, in life, pain is unavoidable, difficulties are unavoidable, but misery is a choice. Misery is an option. One quick example here. One of my students, after we talked about the Dart discourse, they were coming late for class, and they got caught behind a very slow-moving driver. And the student began to feel first dart. She began to feel anger and frustration, and the rising up in her of her middle finger. She began to throw that second dart at herself, right? She began to let her anger make her angry, her frustration make her frustrated. Then she remembered the discussion about the Dart discourse, and she realized that she was making herself miserable. She had been hit by a first dart, but she realized she did not have to throw the second dart at herself. So instead of throwing that second dart and reacting to her emotions behind that slow-moving driver, she breathed in, right? She breathed out. She calmed her emotions. She calmed herself through her breathing. And then eventually she was able to pass the slow-moving driver, and as she passed, she looked over to see who it was. And in that moment, she was very glad she hadn't reacted in a negative way, because, ladies and gentlemen, lo and behold, I, Jeff Nielsen, was that slow-moving driver. And so she just gave me a friendly wave, and I waved back. And I did not know until later on that had been an experience that she'd had with the Dart discourse. And I'm sure that you can relate to that. Well, one last thing here, and then we'll wrap this up. Again, if we were to sort of summarize what Buddha is saying, is that to be alive means that there will always be something that's going to cause you worry, sadness, insecurity, anxiousness, fear. There will never be a time in your life when you won't have experiences that will cause you first dart emotions. But to be gracefully present is to realize that. For the person with graceful presence, it's not living without feelings or moods of anxiety, insecurity, fear, boredom, or sadness, but it's knowing how to live with them. With graceful presence, a person can find, peace of mind, calm, joy in life with pain and difficulty present. The key is not throwing that second dart when you begin to feel those negative emotions, but instead breathe. I know that you can do this. I believe in you, so why don't you start today? The access code for the quiz that follows this lecture is 0101. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening.